Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I note for the record that Charlene Lamb, who testified before this committee at a previous time, was asked specifically the question as to whether or not funding issues impacted the actions that took place, and she said no. So, and I'm really intrigued at this point in time by some of the commentary, because one of the things I'd like to follow up on the questioning, Mr. Nordstrom, that came to you from Mr. Langford with regards to some of the decisions that were made, because being in Benghazi, having the Secretary, because I'm going to tell you, I am struggling to find out how we had a United States ambassador in a marginally safe American compound in an increasingly hostile area on an iconic day like September 11th with limited security. And I think that there are some issues that you were talking about first, decisions that were made about allowing occupancy in the first place. Could you tell me quickly about how that was enabled to be approved?
That's the same question I still have to this day.
You do not know, but you do know, according to the law, it appears that it must be signed off by the Secretary of State, and there is no delegation.
Certainly for parts of it, yes, for the SECA portion of it.
Following up, on July 31st, it's a fact that where I go back on the record, there were 16 SSTs, actually Special Forces in Libya, 14 Department of State security personnel. On August 31st, just shortly before, that had been reduced to 6 regulation individuals in Tripoli, 3 in Benghazi. Why the cutback on security?
Again, that's one of the questions that I had. I've never seen it addressed in the ARB or anything else, is why were these decisions that we made turned down? Why were, in fact, there was a proposal that went back all the way to a month after we had arrived, asking for $2.1 million for staffing to have 19 DS agents maintained throughout that time period. I still don't have any understanding as what happened to that proposal. That went to the Undersecretary of Management as part of the
Did you have confidence in the ability of the locals in the country who were purportedly designed to provide security for you? Did you have confidence in their ability to provide that?
I think, to put it succinctly, it was the best bad plan. It was the only thing we had.
It was the only thing, but I didn't ask if it wasn't. I said, did you have confidence in that?
No.
Did you report that at any point in time to officials in Washington, D.C.?
We did. We did note the training deficiencies in particular. That was something that was always there. Certainly, we had also raised the issue of doing some sort of counterintelligence vetting of the people that worked for us. Ultimately, that was turned down, even though we wanted it, because the Department of State wanted Post to pay the funds for it, which we didn't have. It had always been under our understanding that that was going to be paid for by Washington.
Thank you. So, Mr. Thompson, I know that you have background in counterterrorism. I'm going back on, this is testimony that was provided by Lieutenant Colonel Wood, who was an SST person doing service in Tripoli and ultimately wanted to be in Benghazi. He talked about Facebook threats that were made about Western influences in Benghazi. I also note then a series of issues: an RPG attack on the Red Cross in early May, a Red Cross second attack in June, an IED attack against the UN mission in April 6, an IED attack against a UN convoy on April 10th, an assassination attempt on the British ambassador in June 11th with RPGs, an attempted carjacking on August 6th of 2 SST officers of the United States. In your mind, does this, in your professional opinion, would this suggest to you that the facility in Benghazi, by a reasonable person with your experience or a reasonable person in the State Department, would be likely to be considered a possible or even likely target of a terrorist incident?
It certainly had all the indicators of that based on that history, yes, Congressman.
And in light of that, and in light of your experience in Mr. Nordstrom's testimony, would you have been happy with the idea that it was allowed to be maintained under less than the staffing that had existed only a month before or 2 months before, and under standards which were only 2 in the entire country, according to the testimony of Mr. Nordstrom, that were not meeting the requirements, the minimal requirements of safety.
No, sir, it doesn't make
Mr. Nordstrom or Mr. Hicks, what is normalization and why were we doing this?
That's been a question that even that the ARB raised and others have raised. I'm not sure. I mean, sarcastically, we saw it as do more with less, but that I first saw that term normalization in that budget proposal, a resource proposal, a month after we had arrived. There was already talk about normalizing our footprint. It was then picked up again in February when Greg's predecessor had met with Das Lamb. Same thing. It struck me as being part of some sort of script, just like the reason why he didn't close the facility in Benghazi despite the risks. There was already a political decision that said we're going to keep that open. That's fine, but no one's ever come out and said that we made that risk and we made that decision and take responsibility for it.
I thank the gentleman.
My time's expired, but Mr. Hicks, did you have a response to that as well?
Normalization to us was moving towards being like a normal embassy instead of having being, in a sense, under siege or in a hostile environment where we're surrounded by potential threats. And we wanted to move towards normal life, and it also meant removing or a withdrawal of extra DS personnel, and then a movement towards our diplomatic security personnel managing more of a program that included the recruitment of Libyans to provide additional the security that we needed.
Thank you.